Hi, Adair Palmer here. Now today I'm talking with Peter Strous about diet and clean eating, particularly as it relates to lowering cholesterol. During a health crisis, Peter started his own diet health research when he'd had enough of conflicting information that he received in his life, so he started this research from scratch. This presentation is a very small section of over 28 months of research and is focused on cholesterol. Peter not only wanted to know what would be the healthiest for a human to eat, he also wanted to understand why we're not on track with this as a species, despite our intelligence and modern communication. Today we're talking with Peter about cholesterol and diet. It's important to note that Peter does not have any medical nor dietary training apart from what the research he's done himself and what he's taught himself through the internet, books and DVDs. This information is also not intended as a replacement for medical advice. For a living, Peter's into maintenance, fault finding and teaching fault finding on electrical equipment. So this has led to his logical evidence-based approach, and he's applied that to health and for long term, which is a central approach for Peter. He says we need to know how to properly maintain these bodies of ours if we want to get the most out of them. And Peter's motto is, we do not have to live perfectly, but we do need to know what that is so that we can make informed decisions. Over to you, Peter.
All right, thank you, Adair, for that wonderful introduction. See if we can make it happen. Cholesterol, there we are. The cholesterol was really the reason why I started my research originally, because I was told to lower my cholesterol and I was not keen on using medication. So, yeah, that was the prime reason. Few hiccups. If we look at cholesterol, if we look at cholesterol, we find big population studies, like, for instance, the China study, which this is published in a book by Dr. Colin Campbell. In that book, we find that during a 3-year observation period between 1973 and 75, there was not one single person who died of a heart attack before the age of 64, amongst which was in total 427,000 people. Well, that's an amazing achievement. My guess is that these two provinces of China are the poorer provinces, and that's what often happens. People in the poorer areas actually have less of those diseases that we get in the West. Managed to get to the next slide. That's good. In the USA, there is 610,000 people per year that die from a heart attack. So the situation in the West is vastly different. If we look at the cholesterol levels of the USA, the average in the USA is 5.6. In China, it's 3.3 on average. And in those two provinces that we just looked at, it's 2.35. So that's very much less than what we have in the West. There's also doctors that are curing people from heart disease through a starch-based and a truly low-fat, whole plant-based diet. And I'll have to stress the truly low-fat, because a lot of research has been done on low-fat diets, but often they're not really low-fat in this context. One of those doctors that had great success with a low-fat plant-based diet was Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. He cured many people from heart disease through a low-fat, whole plant-based diet. His patients get a lower cholesterol levels. They come down, the blood pressure comes down more to normal levels. Diabetes type 2 normally disappears if they have it. Often the weight comes down and the arteries start to open up. Actually, the blood flow increases fairly quickly on this diet because the oil in the food slows down the blood flow. Here we see two coronary arteries from one of Esselstyn's studies. On the right-hand side, we see an artery which is fully open, functions well. On the left-hand side, we see one that's pretty much blocked. This is the same person, and the time difference is 32 months between the two pictures. So we can clearly see that the arteries open up on this diet. Another doctor that has achieved the same thing is Dr. Dean Ornish. We get the same story. Cholesterol levels come down, blood pressure comes down, diabetes type 2 disappears, people's weight comes to a more normal level, lower level, and the arteries open up. Another person that achieved the same thing is Dr. John McDougall. And it's the same story again. Cholesterol levels come down, blood pressure comes down, diabetes type 2 disappears, and weight comes down normally if people are overweight, and the arteries open up. All right. But Dean Ornish actually, interestingly, he has received funding by the Medicare, American Medicare, for his lifestyle intervention program that has been happening since 2011. There's also about 40 private health funds in the States that pay him to do his lifestyle tricks. The reason for that will be that a lifestyle medicine is very much cheaper than open heart surgery. Open heart surgery in the States costs about 100,000 American dollars per person, so that's enormous. All right, Nathan Pritikin was actually the first person to cure himself from heart disease through diet. He was an engineer, and he was not happy with the advice he got from his, I think it was about a dozen cardiologists that he went to visit. They all told him the same story, that he had heart disease, and then he researched and came to the conclusion that a low-fat plant-based diet is much better, and that's what he started to eat. He ate extremely low fat, and he got better. After about 6 years, I think, his cholesterol levels had really stabilized. Even if he had meat again, his cholesterol levels would remain stable, and from that he concluded that his buffer, his excess cholesterol in his body had finally disappeared, and he thought he was cured, and he went back to exercise. So it was a remarkable story, really, and it's not very well known, unfortunately. But his main thing was actually curing heart disease. Now let's have a closer look at cholesterol. Cholesterol is used in the body for building cell membranes, and it's also used for making hormones. The cholesterol we find in the blood is used to transport fats around the body. A closer look at two patients, which I think is a really interesting thing, from Dean Ornish, one of the doctors that has been curing people from heart disease through a diet. He reports that one of his patients, Robert Royale, he had a cholesterol level of 9.3 when he was admitted to the Ornish's practice with heart disease. He went on to this low-fat plant-based diet, and his cholesterol came down to 6.5. And Dean thought that would not be enough to open up Robert's arteries, but it was. They did an angiogram 2 years later or so, and the arteries had opened up, so proof was there. Also, patients started to feel much better. Dr. Esselstyn had a colleague, Joseph Crow, who had a heart attack in his early 40s. He was not overweight. Joseph exercised. There was no heart disease in the family, so he didn't have any risk factors. And his cholesterol level was close to what one would consider to be heart attack proof. But despite that, he had his heart attack. Then Joseph went on to a low-fat, plant-based diet, and his cholesterol level came down to 2.3. So, and his arteries started to open up as well. Now, I think these extreme observations are actually give us an indication what's happening with cholesterol, and that's really important because a lot of people are very confused about cholesterol. There's quite a few people, including cardiologists, that say that cholesterol doesn't matter. You can have a high cholesterol level and you can be healthy, and you can have a low cholesterol level and you still get heart disease. Well, it's true. If you compare yourself to a population, that's true. But we can see here that if people get to the lowest possible cholesterol level that they can naturally achieve, then they're going to be well off. They're going to be healthy. And there's big differences between people. In science, we need to look at the biggest picture before we make up our minds in order to keep preconceived ideas out. We also need to include all observations, including the outliers as well, when coming to our conclusions or hypotheses. So if we just go through the summary of the observations that we've just done, populations with a higher serum cholesterol levels have more heart disease. We saw that in the States. Individuals with higher serum cholesterol levels do not necessarily get heart disease and can even revert blocked arteries. That was the Dean Ornish story, Robert Royale. Individuals with low serum cholesterol levels can still get heart disease. That's what Caldwell Esselstyn was telling us with his example. And there are significant individual variations achieved through achieved lowest possible serum cholesterol levels, even when the diet and medications are the same. Now, conclusions from that. For me, it's clear that serum cholesterol does actually not cause heart disease or atherosclerosis. It's just a risk factor. It's a symptom. People with high cholesterol levels not necessarily have got heart disease. So, that's how it works. Raised serum cholesterol levels only indicate a possible increased heart disease chance. And lower serum cholesterol levels only indicate a possible increased chance of good health. Now, if we want an absolute health level indicator, if we really want to know what's happening, the best thing we can do, as we could see from the two examples from Dean Ornish and Caldwell Esselstyn, is that we go on a low-fat, plant-based diet and we compare our current level to the one that we can achieve. And that will give us a good indication of how healthy or unhealthy we are. So we shouldn't compare ourselves, or we shouldn't rely too much on comparing ourselves to populations. We should compare ourselves to what we can achieve ourselves because of the differences between individuals. So your diet is a much better determinant of your health than your serum cholesterol levels. A lot of people look at cholesterol levels and think, mine is not too bad. I can get away with eating more rubbish food. Well, it's the wrong focus. If you want health, you should be concentrating on healthy food. Our other thing we can learn from the examples we went through is that our total serum cholesterol level is built up of a minimum amount that's produced by our bodies in order to sustain all functions. So that's producing, making hormones and the cell walls and, also transporting any fats in our food. Or the minimum amount of fat that we eat. If we eat additional cholesterol produced by our bodies is added to that, and that happens because we try to capture the energy presented through dietary fats coming from cholesterol from animals, fats from animals, and fats from plants. So the more fats you eat, the higher your cholesterol will be, really. And the cholesterol from animals just adds to the total fat load. So what are we supposed to eat? Grains, vegetables, some fruit, some seeds and nuts, and B12 supplement. The B12 supplement comes from, in the past we used to get B12 from bacteria. Nowadays, because of our hygiene, we miss out on that. So if we take a supplement, we don't have to put our snout in the dirt, so to speak. And the types of food to avoid for health is processed foods. That's sugars, all oils, and white flour, and the animal food. And that's the end of my presentation. Best of health. There.
Can you hear? I've just unmuting. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, that was fantastic, Peter, and thanks for sharing that information. And your own story that led you to this was of interest to me, and particularly how you lowered your own cholesterol. Did you want to share that?
Yeah, originally my cholesterol was at 5.3. The cardiologist I had at the time was really keen for me to lower cholesterol. I told him, I said, I'm happy to do that, but I want to do it through diet. And then he said, that's not easy. I wish you good luck. And that was a bit like a red flag to a bull, really, because I thought there must be a way of doing this. I had been on cholesterol-lowering medication before, and when I was on that medication plus beta blockers, I just couldn't sleep anymore. I slept 2.5 hours a night for about 12 days, I think. And when I looked up the side effects from the medication, I found that both beta blockers and cholesterol had insomnia as a side effect. And then I thought, well, you guys are ganging up against me. The beta blockers just got me out of hospital, so I decided to cut the cholesterol-lowering medication. Then I started my research initially, for lowering cholesterol, but that just expanded because not just on a good diet, not just your cholesterol comes down, also your blood pressure comes down to normal levels, your diabetes or pre-diabetes disappears. I lost a bit of weight, not enough because I'm sinning too much, but that's my issue. The arteries open up. My back, I had back problems for 38 years, and that's basically, it's for 95% gone. So it would be really hard for me to go back to the old ways because bad backs are just not much fun. Yeah, and the cholesterol came down from 5.3 to the lowest I got it to at some stage was 3.9.
It's a pretty amazing story, and I think it's an inspiration for other people who are interested in improving their health and looking at ways that are not, even if they are complementary to whatever medical advice they're getting and medical care that they're under, but certainly for taking control of their own health and their own diet. And there's definitely things that you can do that Peter's explained to us quite clearly here, that you're actually not the mercy of someone else shoving some white bread into your face. You can take control and you can make choices about what you eat. And worst case scenario is that you're actually eating better, but as in Peter's case, he's actually improved. He's experienced a lowering of his cholesterol, his back pain's gone, and blood pressure's lowered. So it can only be a good thing. So what I would encourage to people to have a look at doing, just changing bits of your diet that and work towards healthy eating. So with Peter's motto, I think, is really, really important. It's like we don't have to live perfectly, but we do need to understand what this means so that we can make informed decisions. So with that, Peter, I'll thank you very much for your time and sharing with us this really excellent information, and we'll see you on the next one.
It's been a pleasure, Adair. See you on the next occasion.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye. See you then.